trying to find information these days, especially about things like government grants, it can feel like.
Oh, just wading through mud.
Oh, absolutely. There's just so much out there. You hear terms like USDA funding,
Yeah.
local food initiatives. It's hard to know where to even start.
Exactly. So that's what we're trying to do here today. We're going to take a deep dive into one specific area, the USDA's Local Agricultural Market Program, or LAMP.
Right. And specifically, 3 grant programs under that umbrella that are run by the Agricultural Marketing Service, AMS.
We've got a bunch of sources here, an overview, a research brief, FAQs, snapshots of the programs.
Yep, the whole spread.
And our mission really is to unpack all of this for you. We want to pull out the key details. What are these programs for? Who do they help? What do they fund?
And what have they actually done? What's the impact? It's about cutting through the jargon to see the real opportunities here for local food systems.
Okay, so let's start with the big picture. LAMP itself. Where did that come from? So LMP was officially authorized in the 2018 Farm Bill. And its purpose is pretty broad, actually.
Okay.
It's meant to support direct farmer-to-consumer sales, help build up local and regional food markets, and also encourage value-added products.
Value-added, like turning berries into jam, that kind of thing.
Exactly. Taking a raw product and increasing its value through processing or marketing. So LAMP covers quite a bit of ground.
And you mentioned it's an umbrella.
Right. It actually houses 4 grant programs. 3 are managed by AMS, the Farmers Market Promotion Program, FMPP, the Local Food Promotion Program, LFPP.
LFPP, got it.
And the Regional Food System Partnership Program, RFSP. Those are the 3 we're focusing on.
And the 4th?
The 4th is the Value Added Producers Grant, VAPG, but that's run by USDA Rural Development, different part of USDA. So we're sticking with the AMS ones today.
And putting these under the LMP umbrella, that was intentional, wasn't it? Something about funding and coordination.
Yeah, precisely. The idea was to give these programs permanent, mandatory funding, which is a big deal for stability.
Right, so they're not relying on year-to-year budget decisions quite as much.
Exactly. And it was also aimed at improving coordination between the programs while still letting each one focus on its core mission, making the whole thing work together better.
Okay, that makes sense. So 3 complementary programs under AMS. Let's maybe tackle them one by one. FMPP sounds like the most familiar starting point.
Good idea. So FMPP, the Farmers Market Promotion Program, its name gives you a pretty good clue.
Direct sales.
Exactly. It's focused squarely on developing, coordinating, and expanding direct producer-to-consumer markets.
So the classic farmer's market, obviously. But what else counts as direct?
Oh, lots of things. Roadside stands, CSA's community-supported agriculture.
Right, the subscription boxes.
Yep. Even online platforms where a farm sells directly to you. Or agritourism, if it involves selling products directly on the farm. It's all about cutting out the middleman, basically.
So FMPP helps make those direct connections stronger or more widespread. And the sources mention different types of FMPP projects.
Yes, there are a few distinct tracks you can apply under. First is capacity building.
Okay, capacity building, what's that involve?
This is for longer-term efforts, 36 months, with grants from $50,000 up to $250,000. It's about building the organization's ability to support direct markets.
So things like market research, strategic plans.
Exactly, or developing tools other markets can use, recruiting more farmers or customers, improving market operations, things that build a stronger foundation.
Makes sense. Then there's another one, community development.
Community development training and technical assistance, yeah. This one's bigger, $100,000 to $500,000, also over 36 months.
And focus on training.
Right. Providing outreach, training, technical help directly to the farmers and ranchers who are selling in those local markets.
Like workshops on best practices for market managers. Or maybe helping producers navigate regulations.
Precisely. Or setting up producer networks, maybe helping markets get set up to accept SNFP benefits, food stamps, and promoting that to customers.
Okay, those sound like substantial multi-year projects. But were there also some simpler options, the turnkey ones?
Ah, yes, the turnkey projects. AMS introduced these as a more streamlined way to apply for common activities. They're shorter, 24 months, and the funding is between $50,000 and $100,000.
And under FMPP, there are 2 types.
Right. Turnkey marketing and promotion, and turnkey recruitment and training.
So for the marketing one, you just pick from a list.
Yeah, you choose 3 to 5 predefined activities. Things like identify market opportunities, develop a marketing plan, design promotional materials, implement the plan, evaluate how it went.
And the recruitment and training one is similar, but focused on vendors.
Yep, same idea. Choose 3-5 activities related to figuring out strategies, planning, creating materials, implementing, and evaluating efforts to get more vendors or train existing ones.
And the key thing here, based on the FAQs, is you cannot add other activities. You stick strictly to that predefined list you choose.
That's the trade-off for the streamlined application. It keeps the project focused.
Got it. And across all these FMPP types, there's a core requirement. Something about who benefits.
Yes, this is critical. Any FMPP project must benefit more than one agricultural producer, organization, or individual.
So a single farm can't just get a grant solely for its own roadside stand expansion. It needs broader impact.
Correct. It has to help multiple farms or the market as a whole or a group of producers.
Okay, so FMPP, direct farmer to consumer connections, benefiting multiple producers. Now, what about LFPP, the local food promotion program? How's that different?
LFPP shifts the focus. It's about the middle part of the supply chain, the intermediated channels.
Intermediated, meaning not direct sales.
Right. LFPP supports the development, coordination, and expansion of local or regional food businesses that act as intermediaries between the producer and the consumer.
So we're talking about food hubs, aggregators who collect from multiple farms.
Exactly. Or processors who turn local produce into something else, distributors who move local food to stores or restaurants, shared kitchens, storage facilities.
All the links needed to get local food into places like grocery stores, schools, hospitals, restaurants.
Precisely. It's about building that infrastructure between the farm gate and the end consumer, beyond just direct sales.
And does LFPP have similar project types? Planning, implementation?
It does. There are planning grants for folks figuring out how to develop or expand these intermediated systems, and implementation grants for actually establishing, improving, or expanding those intermediary food businesses.
And the turnkey options.
Yep, LFPP also has the turnkey marketing and promotion and turnkey recruitment and training options, just like FMPP, but the activities are tailored to supporting these intermediated businesses and channels.
Okay. And I assume the benefit more than one rule applies here too.
It absolutely does. LFTP projects also need to show they're benefiting more than one producer or agricultural business involved in these local food supply chains.
Got it. So FMPP is direct. LFPP is the middle supply chain. Now, the third one, RFSP, Regional Food System Partnership Program. This sounds broader.
It is. It's fundamentally different. RFSP isn't about funding a specific type of market or business activity directly. It's about funding the collaboration itself.
Funding the partnership.
Exactly. Its purpose is to support the creation and strengthening of multi-stakeholder partnerships, groups that bring together public entities, private businesses, nonprofits, everyone with a stake in the regional food system.
And what do these partnerships do with the funding?
They use it to plan and develop the local or regional food system more strategically. The funding helps build the partnership's capacity for making decisions together, coordinating activities across the region, getting resources, and setting a direction for the whole system.
So it could fund things that maybe FMPP or LFPP wouldn't cover.
Yeah.
Like just getting everyone to the table.
Yes, that's a key aspect. The sources mention activities like value chain coordination, maybe funding a person whose job it is to connect the dots along the supply chain, or convening partners for strategic planning retreats, even providing grant writing help for the partnership to chase other funding opportunities together. It fills gaps that other programs might miss.
How do they define a partnership for this program? Does it need to be super formal?
It needs to be based on an agreement. The sources say it's an agreement between one or more eligible entities, like a nonprofit or local government, and one or more eligible partners, could be businesses, other nonprofits, etc.
And who applies?
Either the main entity or a partner can apply on behalf of the partnership, but the application has to be clear about who will actually receive and manage the grant funds.
And project types here. Planning and implementation again.
Sort of. They call them planning and design for partnerships that are just getting started, organizing, visioning, making initial plans, and then implementation and expansion for partnerships that are more established and ready to act on plans they've already developed or scale up existing efforts.
So the absolute key for RFSP is demonstrating that this is a real partnership effort with broad impact across the food system.
That's the heart of it. It's about strengthening the connective tissue of the whole regional food system.
Okay, wow. 3 distinct but related programs, FMPP Direct, LFPP Intermediate, RFSP Partnerships. Now, the source has also spent a lot of time on requirements and, crucially, restrictions that apply across all three of these AMS programs, stuff applicants really need to know.
Absolutely critical. Getting these wrong can mean your application is ineligible right off the bat.
First big one seems to be cost share or matching funds.
Yes. All three, FMPP, LFPP, and RFSP, require a 25% cost share contribution.
And that's 25% of the federal funds you're asking for, right?
Yeah.
Not 25% of the total project cost.
Correct. 25% of the federal request.
Yeah.
And it has to come from non-federal sources.
Now, is it always cash, or can it be in kind?
Good question. There's a difference. For FMPP and LFPP, the match can be cash, or it can be in-kind contributions, like donated volunteer time valued at a standard rate, or donated space or equipment use.
But for RFSP?
For RFSP, at least for fiscal year 2025, which is the cycle we're discussing, the sources are very clear. The 25% cost share must be cash. No in-kind for RFSP this year.
That's a huge distinction.
Yeah.
And you can't just promise this match, right? You need proof.
Exactly. It has to be secured or committed when you submit the application. You need verification letters from whoever is providing the match, detailing what it is and its value.
Can things like unpaid overhead count, like unrecovered indirect costs?
Yes, the FAQs say that if your organization has a federally negotiated indirect cost rate agreement, a NICRA, the unrecovered portion of those indirect costs can be used as part of your match.
Okay. But definitely no using other federal grant money as match.
Absolutely not. And you also can't use any income your project might generate during the grant period that's called program income as your match.
What if you offer more than 25% match? Does that help your score?
The sources explicitly say no. Offering more than 25% doesn't give you a competitive advantage. But if you offer more in your application and you get the grant, that higher amount you promised becomes mandatory. You're on the hook for it.
Okay, good to know. Who can actually apply? Is it just nonprofits?
No, it's pretty broad. For-profit businesses, nonprofits, state, local, tribal governments, universities, agricultural co-ops, most types of domestic organizations.
But not individuals.
Generally, no. An individual person can apply. However, a sole proprietorship, which is basically an individual running a business, can apply if the project meets that benefit more than one rule we talked about.
Ah, so if their project helps other producers or the community, not just their own business.
Right. And using a fiscal sponsor is also allowed, which can be helpful for groups that don't have their own nonprofit status yet.
Okay, now for the big list. What can you absolutely not use this money for? This seems really important.
It is. Let's run through the main ones. Number one, nothing related to actual agricultural production. No buying tractors, seeds, fertilizer, irrigation equipment, tools for farming. No paying for training on how to grow crops or raise animals. These grants start after the farm gate. They're about markets and distribution.
Got it. No farming costs. What about just buying the food itself?
Also a definite no. You can't use grant funds to purchase food or produce.
Even if it's for, say, a program that gives vouchers to low-income shoppers.
Nope. The sources are clear. No using funds for voucher or reimbursement programs where the grant is effectively buying food. Also, no buying food for donation to a food pantry or buying food just to resell it.
Okay. And you can't act like a mini funder yourself.
Right.
At grant.
Correct. No using the grant to make microloans or to just re-grant the funds out to other people or groups.
What about property? Buying land or buildings?
Unallowable. Same goes for construction. You can't use funds for building materials like lumber, nails, concrete.
But you can rent space.
Yes, renting space for your project activities is fine. And the sources give an example. Adding equipment, like maybe a walk-in cooler or processing equipment, inside a rented space is considered a non-construction improvement and is allowable. But building the structure itself is not.
Okay. Subtle but important difference. What else is on the no list?
Lease-to-own agreements for vehicles or buildings are out. Buying EBT machines for processing SNFP, nope. They point you to other USDA resources, FNS, for that.
What about education around food assistance programs?
You can educate shoppers on how to use their SNFP or WIC benefits at the market or store. But you cannot use funds to educate people on how to enroll in SNFP or WIC. That's considered outreach for the benefit program itself, not market promotion.
Interesting distinction. Anything else, Major?
Can't pay legal fees for setting up a business. Can't fund activities that are already paid for by another federal grant. No double dipping. We already covered projects benefiting only one entity. And finally, your project can't be dependent on getting some other grant or finishing some other unrelated project first. It needs to be ready to go on its own.
That makes sense. sense. It has to be feasible as proposed. And you mentioned needing proof for partnerships and resources.
Yes, for RFSP, the partnership agreement is key. For FMPP LFPP, needing to benefit more than one means you'll likely need partner commitment letters, not just generic letters of support, but letters detailing what the partner will contribute.
And if your project depends on, say, using a specific community kitchen.
You need proof that you have access secured at the time you apply. If you need a lease for a market space, it has to be signed and cover the whole grant period. It's all about showing you're ready to hit the ground running if funded.
Okay, that covers the what. Let's talk how, the actual application process. The sources really emphasize planning ahead here.
They absolutely do. This is not something you can do the week before the deadline.
First big rule. It has to be submitted electronically via grants.gov, right?
Correct. No paper, no email, no fax. Only grants.gov.
And before you even write the proposal, there are some critical registration steps that take time. What are they?
Okay, buckle up. First, you need a UEI, a unique entity identifier from the federal government. Think of it as your organization's social security number. That can take 7 to 10 business days.
Okay.
You'll probably need a taxpayer ID number, an EIN from the IRS if you don't have one. That can take a couple of weeks.
Then the big ones, SAM and grants.gov.
Yes. You must have an active registration in SAM.gov, the system for award management. This is how the government verifies your organization and processes payments. Getting registered can take up to 4 weeks. And you have to renew it every year. It's free, but it takes time.
4 weeks. Okay, that's a major heads up. Start early.
Seriously early. Then you also need to register your organization on grants.gov itself, which can also take up to 4 weeks. This involves having someone designated as your organization's e-business point of contact, e-biz POC, approve whoever will be submitting the grant, the authorized organization representative, AOR.
Wow. So potentially up to 2 months just for registrations if you're starting from scratch.
It's possible. So rule number 1 is check your UEI, SAM, and grants.gov status now.
Good advice. Okay, assuming you've got all that sorted, what about the application itself? Templates.
Yes. AMS provides specific project narrative templates, different ones for the regular projects and the turnkey projects. You must use these templates.
And you can't mess with the formatting.
Nope. The sources say don't change the text, the tables, even the margins. Just fill in your information in the sections provided.
And there are page limits for that narrative section.
Yes, they vary, like 15 pages for a capacity building or community development narrative, but only 5 pages for a turnkey narrative. But that limit only applies to the narrative text you write.
So the required supporting documents like those cost share letters, partner letters, proof of resources, they don't count against the page limit.
Correct. Those are uploaded separately. Same for your indirect cost rate agreement if you have one.
Okay. Can an organization put in for, say, both an FMPP and an LFPP grant in the same year?
Yes, the FAQs say you can apply for both, but you can only receive one award from each program per year. And the projects have to be distinct, different activities, different goals, can't just be the same proposal submitted twice.
Makes sense. What if you already have an active FMPP or LFPP grant? Can you apply for another one in the same program?
Yes, but there's a condition. To be eligible for a new grant in the same program, you have to have submitted all your final closeout reports for the existing grant by the application deadline for the new one.
So current grantees need to be on top of their reporting if they want to reapply to the same program.
Exactly. Keep those deadlines in mind.
And one more thing from the FAQs, can you get AMS staff to look over your draft application?
No, they state clearly they cannot review draft applications or provide feedback on your specific proposal content before submission. They can answer specific questions about eligibility rules, the RFA requirements, that sort of thing.
Okay. And a quick note on contractors.
Right. If your project involves hiring contractors, AMS recommends getting competitive bids, like 3 quotes. If you don't, you need to provide a strong justification for why you chose a specific contractor without competition.
Right. That covers the process hurdles. Let's shift to the payoff. What do these programs actually achieve? The research brief had some interesting impact data.
It really did. This was an evaluation looking back at FMPP and LFPP projects funded in 2014. The headline finding was pretty impressive.
Which was?
For every federal grant dollar invested, the projects generated an average of $2.67 in local and regional economic activity.
Wow, nearly a 3-to-1 return on investment. That's significant.
It really is. It shows these grants aren't just costs, they're investments that spur economic growth.
What other kinds of impacts did they find? Did they help new farmers or businesses?
Yes, significantly. The evaluation found the grants helped almost 1,000 new and beginning producers get started, and they trained nearly 8,000 vendors on business basics crucial for selling locally.
So lowering barriers to entry, did they help existing businesses grow too?
Definitely. About 68% of the grant recipients reported increasing their production or processing capacity because of the grant.
How? What did they use the funds for?
Things like training staff on food processing techniques, which let them create new value-added products, using shared kitchen spaces to incubate new food businesses, improving logistics to get products delivered more efficiently, helping hundreds of markets or CSAs offer more products or expand their reach.
What about connecting farmers to bigger buyers like schools or hospitals? That often requires food safety certifications, right?
Absolutely. And that was a major impact area. The grants helped certify over 3,000 producers and processors in USDA GAPGHP standards. Those are the food safety protocols often required by institutional buyers.
So opening up new, potentially larger markets for local producers.
Exactly. And they train over 7,000 people on various food safety practices as well.
Did the evaluation look beyond just business metrics, like community connections?
It did. About 90% of the recipients reported establishing new links within the food chain, connecting with schools, restaurants, food banks, planning groups. 70% specifically helped connect rural farmers with urban markets. And 80% funded consumer outreach to build awareness and demand for local food.
That sounds like strengthening the whole fabric of the local food system.
Yeah.
Did these impacts last after the grant money ran out?
That's always the key question, isn't it? The evaluation found that 80% of recipients were able to keep their project activities going after the grant ended.
That's pretty good sustainability.
And even better, 2/3 of them reported long-term increases in their customer base, reaching an estimated 3.5 million people collectively.
So, real lasting growth. The brief also had some recommendations for USDA, didn't it?
Yeah, based on the findings, they suggested things like increasing funding for new recipients, not just repeat grantees, better connecting LMP grantees with other USDA resources, creating more opportunities for grantees to learn from each other, like peer networks, and improving how they collect data to track impact even better.
Areas it sounds like AMS has been working on. Now, when applications are reviewed, are there specific things that give an application priority?
Yes, there are a few priority considerations. A big one is benefiting underserved communities.
How's that defined?
It's based on geography. If your project's main implementation address is located in a census tract designated as low income and low food access, using the USDA's ERS Food Access Research Atlas map, your application can get priority points.
So, targeting areas with documented need is important. Any other priorities?
There's one specific to FMPP. An FMPP application can get priority if it's part of a larger RFSP partnership project, and the applicant hasn't had an FMPT grant in the last 5 years.
Encouraging FMPP projects to align with those broader regional strategies funded by RFSP.
Exactly, fostering that synergy.
Okay, let's wrap up with a practical timeline for anyone listening who might be interested in applying this year for fiscal year 2025.
Right, this is timely. The application period actually opened back on May 9th, 2025.
So applications are being accepted right now. When's the deadline?
The deadline is June 27th, 2025 at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time. Always check the time zone.
June 27th. Okay, so there's still a window, but given those registration lead times for SAM.gov and grants.gov.
You absolutely need to get moving on those immediately if you haven't already. Don't wait.
Good advice. After the deadline, what's the review timeline look like?
They anticipate reviewing applications from roughly July through November 2025.
And people find out.
Award notifications are expected around November or December 2025.
And if people have questions during the application period?
AMS usually holds applicant webinars and virtual office hours. You should check the AMS Grants website for the schedule and recordings if they're available. Those can be really helpful.
And one last opportunity, serving as a peer reviewer.
Yes. If you have expertise in local food systems, but you're not applying to a specific program this year, you might be eligible to serve on the review panel for it. It's a great way to see the process and contribute. Check the AMS website for info on how to volunteer.
Okay, so pulling this all together, these 3 AMS programs under LMP, FMPP, LFPP, RFSP, they're really concrete tools. They offer significant funding to support different aspects of local food systems.
Right. From direct farmer to consumer sales, to the crucial intermediary businesses, all the way up to strategic regional partnerships. It's about making local food more accessible, viable for producers, and boosting local economies.
It really shows how government programs can translate into tangible support you might see at your local farmer's market or in the local product section at your grocery store or through a food hub connecting farms to restaurants.
That impact data, the $2.67 generated for every grant dollar, it makes you think beyond just the transaction.
Yeah, it leaves you wondering, how does supporting local food, whether it's through applying for one of these grants or just choosing to buy local yourself, how does that ripple outwards?
What does it really mean for community strength, for economic resilience, maybe even just for feeling more connected to where our food comes from? What are those broader effects?
It's a great question to ponder. What needs does your community have that might align with these programs? What partnerships could make a difference?
If any of this sparked your interest, definitely check out the resources. The AMS website has the full requests for applications, RFAs, the FAQs, the program snapshots, all the nitty-gritty details are there if you want to dig deeper or maybe even start planning an application.